All right, so today we're here with the very mysterious Steve Oklyn, who is a conceptual artist who's been doing so many incredible things, but sort of always in the background. So I can't believe that we are here today talking to you in person, and you've allowed us to come and invade your space and let us point a camera at you, which I know is very unusual. So this is very exciting.
Well, here I am.
Okay.
I was born in Brooklyn. I became a contemporary art student at SVA, School of Visual Arts.
Oh.
Several of my teachers were founders of the conceptual art movement, in particular Joseph Kosuth.
Are there other people besides Joseph Kosuth? Were there any other like really important influences on you like that?
So many. Seth Seigellob, who had some commentary in the late 60s about conceptual art being a form of journalism. And I've sort of been exploring that idea in the 21st century, that conceptual art can be the new journalism.
I'm just so curious why you would be so interested in examining the structures and the societal structures around fashion.
I am very interested in large societal structures. And fashion is a global structure which controls so many people's lives. And it's also overtaken contemporary art as this cultural influence mechanism. Sneakers are being discussed as a contemporary art activity. Fashion presents itself as art to the new youth and young adults, but delivers no intellectual reward. It's funny, but yet it's sad. It's a con. It's a crime. And one of the crimes is fashion has created this perfect propaganda machine, and the machinery to most people is invisible. Criminals are at first invisible. I'm invisible, but my work makes the invisible visible. If certain fashion leaders are afraid of my work, it's for that reason. Control acts best when it cannot be perceived operating, let alone existing.
I mean, I think that's what it is. I mean, and I have to, interject that having been, on staff of these sort of fashion media, very powerful organizations, it's like, it really is a propaganda machine, and like we really were the best at it, and the fact that it could, that it's now being co-opted by these like greater forces that maybe don't have creative intentions per se is a pretty scary thing.
I'm Oscar, and I have been collaborating with Steve Oklyn and Mark Eben for a couple of years. I received an email from him, which just a link. So I clicked it, and it was this strange blog called Not Vogue. Lists of names
of people in that
photos
industry.
of people, photos of people in the fashion industry inverted, symbols on top of their faces. It was very, very strange.
Like you said, fashion has overtaken contemporary art as like the cultural influence mechanism. Like it's a mechanism. So tell us about the process of like, how are you piecing this together?
I approach my work in the same way a detective would approach their work. I recognize a cultural crime, and then like a traditional detective would do, I just try and piece together what happened. I think what we're living in now, I call it the age of visibility. It was created by this cultural virus that I've named A1W1, Andy 1, Warhol 1. And so to challenge myself, I created a strategy to be as invisible as possible. The way I view reality is it's a series of codes, because codes are they have great influence, but they remain invisible. I find, the cult of personality irrelevant to my work. I also do not operate as a lonely genius.
The idea we would have of like the genius artist is like a Picasso or somebody that goes and like locks himself in a room and then comes out with this masterpiece. And then, suffers because no one understands him. And it's like, now it's like the opposite is true.
most of today's creative class grew up in suburban McMansions and had this glamour-based idea of a creative life, you know, fashion and red carpets and these sort of structures that seem to have value when really there is nothing there. It's a facade. I think the lonely genius versus the visibility question is more about the difference between analog and digital planes of experience. It's also the profound difference between relevance and fame, right? In the modern to contemporary artistic era, the major cities like Paris, London, New York, I mean, these were the places where individual creative minds would go to, would flock to. This is where they wanted to be. Now it's LA, it's Silicon Valley, and this is where the new digital age creative minds want to be. This is where they want to go.
Speaking of the lonely genius, the other mysterious figure in this crime scene investigation you're putting together is another great conceptual artist that I know that you've been collaborating with, the infamous Mark Even, who's now serving a 10-year sentence, which is unbelievable. But I know you're in contact with him, so how did that collaboration start?
Right, yeah, so I'm really friendly with Mark Even's parents. I've always found Mark to be special. When he went to prison, our relationship actually deepened. I find him and his work extraordinary, and I think we cannot ignore the fact that he's currently just 17 years old. I mean, I find that to be amazing. He's always been comfortable, just spending a lot of time on his own, and I think his prison life has allowed him to explore that independence.
The work with Mark has always been through email.
But how does he have email though? If he's in a supermax cyber prison, or do they get they can write stuff down and people send out the email or something like that? I would think that they would be quite detached from technology.
Yeah, well, he got in prison because of his hacking abilities. I'm assuming he has a...
Oh, so you think that this is just some con he's...
I think he's not allowed.
Okay, all right, so it's not official.
Yeah.
So you're complicit in criminal activity. Oop. That's hilarious.
That's
fun. Well, it's art. It's performance art.
Yes, it's an art statement.
Yeah.
There's no money to be made from this.
Right.
It's just an insight, an observation, and people can take it the way they want.
I just finished a VR opera titled Hollow Point, and Mark created a visual sequence that he called Dum Dum. D-U-M.
Okay, great. So you have a call meeting with him today though.
Yeah.
So
we have something set up. Yeah. Here he is.
This call may be recorded and monitored. I have a collect call from Mark Even, an inmate at Ballsack 1 detention facility in Steel City, Nebraska.
Yes, I'll accept the call. Mark, how are you doing?
Fine.
Good. Did you get the books you requested?
Yes. Thanks.
What are you working on now?
New questions and new themes.
Can you be more specific? Can you talk about these?
I'm now the head of the narrative and design division.
There are divisions at Ballsack 1.
Yes, and departments.
What department is narrative under?
The storytelling department. Storytelling directs both the narrative group and the behavior division. Can you discuss what you're currently working on? Higher level consciousness algorithms.
Can you be more specific?
I'm writing a code that will be introduced as a virus.
What kind of virus?
It will initiate a new cultural narrative.
Can you be more specific?
No. All I can tell you is the title. I call it Reckoning.
Intense.
Yeah. I also just finished the coding on our VR opera.
Are we in agreement on the title?
Yes, it's Hollow Point.
Perfect.
Our Oslo operative is arranging to premiere in London.
Good news. Anything else?
The Virgil Abloh virus is performing beyond expectations.
to be honest, I'm blown away by his performance.
Falstack's strategic vision is stealth and results driven.
I still can't believe people believe in reality. It's
It never has in their world. I have to go.
okay. Later. So that was him. Andy Warhol created the Kardashians, right? I mean, you know, it's almost as if Calabasas, California is now the Soho of 2018 and beyond. It's ludicrous, right? I mean,
Oh my God! Don't say that. It's so true.
you need a faux period style crib rather than a walk-up garret to be considered artistically relevant.
Right. No more squats and lofts.
Right.
Now you go right to
Right.
the $20 million mansion.
Exactly. Forget about the Lower East Side. Forget about all that. You know, I call this idea suburbanism, the soft carpeted world, or rather, I also like to call it the shallow end of the pool. You know, and if you think of it in terms of music, right? Jimi Hendrix is the deep end of the pool, where there's a high chance of drowning, right? But you can think of Kanye as the shallow end of the pool.
Yeah.
If you think about this, if you were to take the Jimi Hendrix experience and they were to open for Kanye or Jay-Z, the crowd, the audience would be completely mind fucked. It's analog versus digital. It's celebrity versus genius, and it's suburban versus not urban but the urbane.
Great. Okay. I think we got it.